We're good? Thank you, everyone. Welcome to the board meeting for Board of Adjustment, September 21st, 2023. I call this meeting to order. I'm going to introduce the board first. To my far left, your far right, Patricia Rathburn. Next to her, Caldwell Cooper.
Good evening.
To my immediate left, Bob Wolf.
Hi.
To my right, Fred Stressow.
Hello.
Doug Mead.
Hello.
And Jason Agopian.
Hello.
Okay, so we're going to start our meeting. Since we do have a quorum, we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And Bob, I'm going to have you do it.
Everybody rise, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And I will ask staff to please introduce themselves.
All right, so to my right is the interim city attorney, Dwayne Spence, zoning administrator, Mohammed Malik. My name is Bert Ford, I'm the zoning chief. James Hollingsworth is one of our plans examiners. And our A-plus senior administrative assistant is Shaquila Crawford.
Thank you. So I would take a motion for approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion or changes? Okay, let's just take a roll call for approval. Jamie?
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Ms. Rathbun? Yes. Mr. Stressar?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Hagopian?
I don't know, I wasn't here for the,
You
okay,
can.
yes.
Mr. Cooper?
I'm abstaining because I was not here for the meeting.
Mr. Cooper, you need to vote.
You're not allowed to abstain.
You can only abstain if there is a conflict of interest.
Okay, I don't want to disagree with you, but I wasn't here. How can I approve what was said or discussed if I wasn't here to understand
I
anything?
do understand that, but that's Florida law.
Okay.
Chair Elfman?
Yes.
Thanks.
Okay, motion passes. So as we start, each member of the public that wishes to speak after each item is presented and discussed will have 3 minutes per item. Representatives of associations and groups will have 5 minutes. So I'm going to introduce the first item. Sorry.
Chair Elfman?
Yes,
We need to swear everyone in, please.
thank you, please. If anybody who wishes to speak, if you could please stand and be sworn in
For the whole meeting or just this item?
for the whole meeting. Thanks, Brad.
Everybody here? Do you swear or affirm any testimony you give at this public hearing will be truthful and accurate? Yes. Thanks.
Okay, first case, case number 230-30005. Do we have, and this is going to be for 901 Southwest 31st Street. Do we have anybody that's here? Okay, if you could please come up to the podium, and in the meantime, we're going to ask for any disclosures. So we'll start, Patricia.
None.
Caldwell?
Been by the property?
Bob?
None.
Fred?
None.
None.
Thank you. Jason? Okay. And I have none as well. Okay, sir, if you could please state your name, relation to the property, and state your case.
Mark Petrossi, I'm the homeowner, 901 Southwest 31st Street in Fort Lauderdale. What's in question is a building that I built on my personal property to hold my personal items. I built it to simplify my life, and I'm paying $550 a month for storage for my tools that I need on my property. I got to stop that hemorrhaging right now. I can't retire and still pay $550 a month for storage. It's purely selfish. I built that for myself to simplify my life, to get everything together on my property. We had that horrendous flood, and I had to go through floodwaters to get my generator, and just sacrifice my only running vehicle to get my generator. When it'd been nice if it was on my property. And also I had tools inside my house in 5-gallon buckets, and when the water floated those buckets, they turned over and tools got wet. So it's not for profit. That property is going to sell for the lot, not for the building. It's not for the structures. What's going around there in Edgewood is people are buying the lots. And I spoke to the doctor next door who rents that house. He's interested in buying my corner lot just to be able to stack in some property there. the storage, the size of the unit, the cubic feet I have now is a 10 by 10 by 20. It's 2,000 square foot. The building I built the interior cubic feet is 1,200 cubic feet. So I try to get as much cubic feet for the storage. You know, being self-employed, the tools that I accumulated, and in Tennessee, all the work I've done, I've never been asked for a permit. So not that I'm above the law. I just didn't know the law. And I spoke to my neighbors and a couple carpenters at work that they assured me that as long as the building wasn't attached to the house, I didn't need a permit. It's really bad advice from really well-meaning people. I was told by the neighbors that there's a pad on the property, and there was. I built on top of this pad that is considered as a well pad. And if there's a well pad on your property, you can build on top of that without a permit. So I went forward with this information and didn't pull any permits. It's taken me a long time to get here to this point. I want to thank Mr. Hollingsworth and Jasmine and Ms. Crawford for their patience and their professionalism to get me to this point. I've been working on this since March, and every time I get closer and closer, I'd get kicked back. So here we are in September. So it's been a long ordeal, but they are very patient, very professional, helping me get to this point here. It was never built for profit. I'm not going to I'm going to sell that property, like I said, for the land, not for the square footage. Not much more I can add to that other than my slides I have. It's well constructed. I got reinforced concrete, got a rebar in the joint and the block core there. I got cast lintels. You can't see that. There's cast concrete, and these columns go down on each side. So it's built. It's not a tin shed. It's not a 10 by 10 metal shed or a 10 by 10 wood shed. It's built to store my property. So when the storm comes, I don't have to drag everything into my house to protect the tools. It's a structure. It's a sound structure. This is from a neighbor, my next door neighbor. They're not offended by it, and I'm sure I'm not here because the aesthetics. I'm here because of the legal aspects. And this is me. I worked Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport. I got a reward back in July. I'm maintenance there. I work on the runways and taxiways. There's that reward right there for me in July. So I'm not a lawbreaker. I really not. I try to do the best. And being efficient, I moved so close to the airport, so I have a short drive. So that's getting back to being efficient and building this building to house my tools, being more efficient. As I get older, I don't want to go to storage, get tools, and come back. And I don't want to store tools in my bedroom. Take away, people come visit me, and they have beach toys there. They have beach chairs, surfboards. So when the snowbirds come visit me, I have material there for them, coolers. When I bought the house, I knew there wasn't any storage. So when I got the house, it was real bad shape. It had some animals in it. Yes.
Just to kind of help you, we're not the code enforcement board, so we're not here about that. We're here because of the size of what you're requesting based upon what you built. Okay.
Well, that's basically I built it to house my tools to be, even though it's smaller than what I have now, I'm still liquidating. I liquidated when I moved from Tennessee to here, and from Coral Springs to Fort Lauderdale. Every time I move, I liquidate tools. So, and I'm downsizing, but I have 5-gallon gas cans. I have 5-gallon diesel cans that I need to store. It's just it's a matter of being more efficient, and that's the size of the building. When I did get permits from my house windows, I did look at sheds, and all I saw was a 10 by 10. Well, that's because I didn't push further into that. I was looking for something what I built. Like I said, I didn't push further. I just kind of skimmed over the shed and the 10 by 10 dimensions that were offered. I just thought that was just another aspect of a storage unit, and there would be something I could build permit-wise.
Okay, I'm sure we're going to have some questions.
Yes.
If you're done with your presentation,
Yes.
I'm going to ask you just to step to the side. We'll see if there's anybody from the public that wishes to speak.
Sure.
So is there anybody from the public that wishes to speak to this matter? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, and I'm going to bring it back to the board, as I'm sure there's going to be some questions. Anybody from the board have any questions? Ah, okay.
What happens if we don't
Milton, welcome
grant
back.
this? You're gonna,
You know, because I built it by hand, I'm going to take it down by hand. I know where I need to cut the, I know it's probably going to kill me taking it down because there's probably 5 tons of concrete above my scaffolding. And I'll have to hand load the dumpster because if I get equipment in there, I got a water line, and there's overhead power lines. I can't get equipment in there. So yeah, it'll be. I've already got strategic cuts with the concrete saw where I'd cut. And probably pull it down with my truck because the corners are cast concrete. All 4 corners, each column along the windows are cast concrete. Along the doorways, cast concrete. Along the lintel, then the top beam, the tie beam is cast concrete. Everything's reinforced. So it's and then what do I do with the tools? Do I take a bedroom out of my house and make a storage unit out of it? I didn't buy the house to make. I didn't buy a house to store things. But to answer your question, it ain't gonna be pretty to tear it down. It wasn't meant to be tore down. I didn't build it to be tore down.
Okay, are there any other questions?
Is there a reason that you didn't build this in the backyard?
I'm on a corner lot, and my backyard is non-existent practically. There's the 5-foot setback and there's no backyard. I just have a side yard and front yard. In the front yards, there's that big setback there in the front, so I can't do anything out the front. So this went to the side. Yes.
Microphone.
Just, I don't know the chronology of this, but I saw the survey in the back, which I hadn't really looked before. Was the survey done after the city flagged you, or
Yes.
Okay? How much does the survey cost you? Just around, don't exactly, but
I think it's
ballpark.
about $750.
$750. So that was all done after.
Correct.
Okay.
But I knew the setback. I try to respect that setback with the building.
Okay.
And then there.
Oh, it's right here.
And the architect, I had the architect do an as-built. The open porch, I think, also in the neighborhood, I saw when I walk the neighborhood, I see other projects, other structures. I see carports on the setback of other people's properties, open. That kind of gave me another reason why I thought I could do this, pull this off.
Okay, and Jamie, I'm not sure if I needed to make a special comment about this, but Milton Jones has joined us back up here. Excellent, thank you. Does anybody else have anything before we take a vote? Okay, in that case, sir, you can be seated, and we're going to vote. So, yes, do we have a motion? Someone?
I'll make a motion to approve the variances as set forth in the application.
Do we have a second?
second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I've got a question for
Go ahead.
Dwayne. Do we need to just vote on the motion, or do we need to vote on each of these separate items?
The motion on the table is for the variance as set forth in the application, and it's set forth all of the variance requests. If members believe that, each variance request should be considered on its own, but it is okay to vote them in a collective, in total.
Okay.
Is there anybody that wants to do a separation? Okay, we'll vote it as on. I think we're okay, Jamie.
Okay. Mr. Jones?
No.
Mr. Mead?
No.
Ms. Rathburn?
No.
Mr. Strasser?
No.
Mr. Wolf?
No.
Mr. Cooper?
No.
And Chair Elfman?
No.
Failed 0-7.
Okay.
Sorry.
Chair, if you would announce the,
He wants you to give the total.
announce the,
Oh, okay. So the motion failed, 7-0. Okay, our next case, case number 230-70004, address 215 Southeast 12th Avenue. And we're going to look for disclosures first. So Milton, we'll start with you.
None.
Site visit? Couple of times.
Okay. None. Okay, Colba?
Site visit.
No.
And for me, site visit on this one. Okay, sir, if you could please come up, state your name, relation to the property. Or it looks like we have two sirs. So whoever wants to go first, it's time to start. But if you could come up behind the microphone.
So hello, my name is Eduardo Torrente. I'm part of the design team of this project. First of all, we're gonna talk a little bit about the house. And the house is like a corner lot abounding on three streets right now. We decided to keep the old house in this property, which is the yellow one that is just highlighted, as you can see right now here. And this house was built in the 1920s, and for us as a design team of our client has like important design value, and that we will see some pictures later on. And in the purple part, it's an addition that it was made by the previous owner of this lot. As you can see, this is the idea that I'm talking about. The yellow one is the old house, and the purple is the addition that person did. And here you can see some pictures of the older house in the first line, second line, the addition, and in the third line, the yard, which is full of trees that we want to keep it in the design on the project. As you can see in the left part, there's some ornaments that are valuable for us as a design lines to keep it. And in the right hand of the slide, you can see like some addition of the old owner that he did it, and it was not in good shape for us. So we went to demolish and try to clean the main house. Here are some pictures of the neighbors that are located in the same block as we are. We're seeing some architecture, we're really defined and clean. So we want to follow that in our project also. And here's a little bit about the design process that Felipe is going to help us talking about that.
Felipe Martinez, I am part of the design team. Okay, so as you can see, the house is not centered in the lot. The blue lines are the lot side, and the yellow is the existing house with the two expansions. So that is existing. So we want to conserve the house, so it was kind of difficult to get the setback. So we went for the investigation. As you can see here, this is the setback in the rear portion, so there is not really a setback from the existing house. So next. So the first step was go and research the code, and we came with this out of the web page. And in the web page, and that was the problem is that this is not a conventional house because it's a corner lot with a lot of angles. So in the online, we find that there is no rear setback. And so we assumed that the part that was not the rear setback, it was the part that exists in that doesn't have any setbacks, right? That is just 2 or 3 feet away from the. So we work in that way. When we submit for the permit application, we were informed that, yeah, there is a corner lot, so that we need to respect some setbacks, and we are encouraging in the house. So next, please. So here is, I want to explain. So the part in yellow is the existing house, right? And we are adding just the little portion that are in purple. So you can see, and we are doing a lot of rehab inside, but we are kind of respecting everything around, just adding the little portions here. So the ones in red are the setbacks that we are asking for. The ones in green are the setbacks that we need to respect, right? with all the rear and the back. But if we respect the existing ones, we pretty much need to demolish the house, the green ones, because the existing house is not respecting the setbacks. And what we want is just continue with the same lines. And you can see there is not a lot of difference between the purple and the orange. That is, so what we are asking you guys is for the variance, so we get the setbacks that are in red, that are pretty much the existing setbacks. So we can continue with the same house. Next. Yep. So this is what we assume at the beginning that obviously is wrong. We were informed by the building department that it's wrong. So what we are asking for you guys is this, is what is in the bottom right now. That is, we require a 25. We propose a 42 in the front, but we don't have any problem with that. With the corners, and this is how the formula comes for 25% of the total lot, and we come to 14, but the existing house and what we are proposing has only 10 feet 8 inches, so we have a variance there. The corner, really similar situation, so we have a corner, and the rear back is what is the real existing, so that is 15, and right currently it's only 2.10,
So back to the project. As we can see, this is like the versus from the old house and the new house. Mainly this L size is like the L shape is the previous that we want to demolish, and we were doing is just kind of doing the same again, very really well shaped. This is the interior part, as you can see if you want to check, and this was the process that we did. We have the main house, we just clean that structure, and then we just do a new one. This is some assets that the project will have, like solar panels and everything in very good shape. This is the facades of the house. So as you can see, we are keeping the same scale of the old house, even though the same scale of the neighbors. And this is our final render that we have from the front part of the house.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add, or does that complete your presentation? Okay, in that case, don't go far. Board, I did want to note that we do have 2 letters of opposition in our file from 2 different neighborhoods, one from Coley Hammock and one from Beverly Heights. And is there anybody from the public that wishes to speak? If you want to come up, please come up. No, we have fewer people than a commission meeting, so you can come in whichever order you wish. Please. And you have been sworn in?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Yes, if you come up to the microphone, you may want to bring it down a drop.
All right.
And if you could please state your name and property address.
Sure. I'm Joellen Felmuth. The property is 1111 Southeast 2nd Street. Just so you know, my husband is the Homeowners Association president of one of the letters that you received, but I'm here personally as a homeowner, as the neighbor that is most affected by this house.
Okay.
And thank you. It's my first time coming to one of these, so apologies if I don't do this so well. So I think that, what we've seen tonight is really not enough of a justification for the variance according to the ordinances and I think the code and what the justification is required to do it. I think usually there is if I researched everything correctly, need for a hardship, which you don't see. Seems like it's a little bit more for personal gain. That the variances are self-created. The applicant is not deprived of any substantial property rights. It does negatively affect us. I mean, we are on the other side of this. I know we can go back, but there's a house like right there. 2 structures. Those are the ones that we have. We have young kids. We use it to play in the yard, etc. We've been in this neighborhood for 20 plus years. I'll be honest with you. We have put a lot into it. Spent a lot of green space. That street, if anybody knows about it, Southeast 2nd Street is where everybody walks their dogs. It's a community street. It's, the little bit of green and trees and low, beautiful sunlight that we have coming in is really nice. And that's one of the things I think that we're very fearful of, quite honestly, as a neighbor that lives right there. So I'm here personally to say that we're not in favor of the setback. I mean, it's huge. It's supposed to be, 15 feet, I believe? They want to go back to 2.5 feet along our line. That's an 80% change. I mean, at least 20% of what the code is supposed to be. And there's been a lot of adjustments to that house along the way. Not that the new owners did, previous owners did. So it's kind of grown to where it's not supposed to be anyway, quite honestly. So I think, there's 4 variances within this request. 2 of them, one is for the old part of the house that goes back, and that takes it, what was it? I think it's over 12 feet adjustment to move it back. And the other one is, I don't remember my numbers now, 11 feet of the new part to bring it back. So that's a huge step back in the change from 15 feet to 2.5 feet. So I don't think that's exactly where we want to be in our neighborhood, quite honestly. And I think it sets a precedence. We have a lovely street, and one of our houses was shown on there. So we have a lovely street, and everything is the part of that area of Beverly Heights / Cooley Hammock that is our community part, and we want to keep it green and not a big structure, et cetera. So that's what I'm personally here to do.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
It's okay. And please, when you're up there, I know you have been sworn in, but please state your name and
Molly
your property
Taylor.
address.
I live in Coley Hammock, and I'm actually here representing Coley Hammock Homeowners Association, which, as you know from our letter, along with Beverly Heights, we are opposed to this. And there's just a few things I want to say. One, it's a beautiful design, I have to say. It's a really pretty picture. And you talked a lot about respect and the boundary lines and all, but the only thing you're not respecting is the setbacks that the neighborhood requires. And they're there for a reason. They're there, and we as a neighborhood, we have to watch what happens in our neighborhood because, as she said, there's a precedent. When you set a precedent to reduce 15 to 2.8 feet, that's not good. That's not okay. These people who bought this property, it's been a strange property for years and years because it's on those 3 streets, and they knew what they were buying. So this is, they bought this, and they're trying to make it into something that it can't really be made into because it doesn't follow the law. That's it.
Okay. Thank you, Molly.
I have a quick question.
Go ahead, Colwell.
Did you have a homeowners association meeting and you guys voted on being against this project, or how did
We
you
didn't
come
have
up?
time to call a meeting. It was more that it was emailed, the whole variance request and the description of what all of this was emailed to us about probably 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
So it went back and forth, and everybody talked about, how in general, neighborhood associations oppose these things in general. But we did look at what it was they were asking for, and when we saw which property it was like, well, now we know, we know that property pretty well. And so, yes, we did we have quite a bit of discussion and quite a bit of concurrence in our chains of emails with virtually everybody saying we want to be opposed to this.
So on the voting process,
was a vote taken? Did we have a meeting and a vote taken? No.
Well, you said everybody. So
On
how many
the
people said
board of
yes? How many
Coley
people said no? I'm just kind of curious how you came up to the point that Coley Hammock decided to write a letter that they're in opposition to it. I'm trying to figure out how you got to that point. I'm
The
just curious.
email was sent to everybody on the board.
Which is how many people?
I think it's, on the secretary, I think it's 11. I registered with the state. I just can't remember the exact number, but everybody. And of the people who were on the email chain, there were at least 7 or 8. I mean, I can go back to the email and look at the numbers and give you an accurate count. But it was, everybody who did respond to it said, we don't like this. This is something we should
Right,
not
but
allow.
the question is, did you get 3 people responded out of 11,
yes.
or did you get 10 people out of 11? I just wonder sometimes because
I think it's
get the
about
feeling
7.
sometimes the neighborhood's kind of
I know.
2 or 3
2 people who are the loudest say that we represent everybody.
Correct.
Yes, I understand that. And I think it was probably 7 of us who concurred that we want to write a letter opposing this. And then the draft of the letter was sent to everybody, and everybody on the board. And everybody on the board who responded, which was at least 7 people involved, said, yes, that's what we want to do.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
How many homes do you have?
230, 50, something like that, in Coley Hammock. Beverly Heights is a lot smaller. It's only 3 streets, really, 4 streets.
And I had a question too. How did that get on your radar screen? Did
Board of Adjustment notice.
Just the developer didn't come to you saying, "Hi, I want to do this in the neighborhood."
The sign? It came to my notice before the sign was up. because this was several weeks ago. I don't know when the sign went up because I hadn't walked by it. You know, I walked the dog, and I don't know. I've seen the sign, but I know that I saw the email before that. So it came from our president, who said, here's what's coming up at Board of Adjustment. We need to pay attention. So we did.
So there was no developer going to you guys seeking you out for input?
I'm not the president. I didn't originate the we should look at this, but in the email where it was we should look at this, I don't remember hearing the developer came asking us to support this. That was not in there. It was, here's what's coming up, Board of Adjustment. It's in our neighborhood. We need to pay attention. So, no, that I know of. That's it.
Thank you, Molly.
Thank you.
Sure, sir, if you want to come up for a rebuttal. Actually, before you do, one quick question. Is there anybody else from the public that wishes to speak? I'm sorry, I'm going to have you wait then, sir. Please come up.
I did not swear, and I'm willing to do so now.
Okay, Jamie, if you could please swear him in.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. And when you're up there, if you could please state your name and your property address.
My name is Gary Warren. I'm the owner of 913 Southeast 2nd Court in Fort Lauderdale, and I am also a member of the Beverly Heights Homeowners Association. And to answer your question, it wasn't a president-only decision because it is his neighboring. It is adjacent to his property. It was a conversation, and I will swear on behalf of two others that support the comments made that this variance is too great and moves the property and the home too close to the existing home. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? I'm going to save time for rebuttal, sir, so you just hang tight. I'm not going to forget you. Okay, I know you have been sworn in. Okay.
Hi, Dan McNulty, 1111 East Los Alamos, and don't need to reiterate everything that's up here that's been said, but I just think that the variance is too great. And, you know, that it just starts to go like this over time. And as a recent condo buyer in the neighborhood, that concerns me. That where does this stop then? Where does this small little bits and pieces stop? Because it's already out of variance from what I understand. And it's like, how could you grant something that's already out of variance? That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else from the public that wishes to speak? I think we almost had everybody. In that case, I'll close the public hearing. And, sir, if you could come back up, I'll give you a couple minutes for rebuttal, and then we'll have questions for you.
Just something quick. I just want to make sure that you guys understand.
And please get closer to the microphone. And by the way, we can't see when you point.
Okay. So.
But we do have screens.
Okay. So I just want to make sure that we are working in the same area of the house. So if the owner decides, the owner is here in front. So if the owner decides to, okay, so change the project and redo everything inside, the boundary of the house is not going to change. So it's going to be exactly the same as it is right now. And we are asking, if you see compare both projects are exactly in the same area, right? But the existing house is out of the variance. So the existing house, exactly as it is now in the side of the house. So the owner, if this project doesn't pass and the variance is not approved, she has the right to work inside of the house and the house won't change, right? Because it's grandfathered the wall. So just remodel inside. Don't change everything outside because she wants to live there and she wants to remodel. You guys saw the picture inside. So that is what I just want to share. That we are not expanding the house. We just doing something is just working. But by changing the walls around the house, we need to come here because it's a new wall, right? Exterior. So just to make sure that we are clear.
And while you're there, don't go far. I know there's going to be a couple questions. Fred, I'll let you start.
I guess I'm struggling with the exhibit that you gave us, which is a 1.0, and I don't see that as part of what you put up on the screen. So it's this.
Can I?
Sure.
And by the way, sir, I'm sorry, but if you're going to address, I'm going to also ask you to go back and address in the microphone.
Sorry.
That's okay.
We don't have this in the presentation, but I can respond to any question if you have it.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to decide is what is new in this drawing? What is the new construction that's being added as opposed to where the existing building? This is very clear in what's outlined in red where the existing building is. It apparently, there's an addition on the northeast corner. Yeah. Is that the only encroachment, or is there a tiny piece over on 12th Avenue?
So, can I point to this, or can I
Sure.
point there?
No, that's all right. Do up here so the public can see.
So,
I'm pretty.
what is changing is we are extending this line to match this line, right? In all this area, that is the old area that was shown in the picture, want to be new one. So all this corner, and the addition correctly is this corner here to match the lines, right? But all this area is existing and will be respected, but redo with new walls and everything.
So on this drawing that is shown in gray, over as it faces Southeast 2nd Street, there's a large portion that is shown in gray, and I don't think that is a new construction, is it?
By the way, if this helps, you could have my copy.
No, sir.
It's the area that's by.
No, sir. The area underneath is just pavers. Is those pavers that are in gray in this picture. You see? They're here. Those.
Okay, so if we assume, Mohammed, that the original building was permitted.
I have a question, if I may, on your question.
Go.
If they had an original building that was the smaller area, and they had originally a porch that they closed in at some point with or without a permit, what counts as original building?
Okay, board, there is a requirement for what do you call a change in structure. If it's non-conforming, there is a 50% rule. If they 50% of the area, 50% of the value. If they cross that, then even the new building, even they are doing a renovation, if they cross the 50% rule, which we don't know at this point they are crossing or not, they have to comply with the new code. So they just can't, at this time, I mean, I can't say, whether they're crossing or not, the 50% rule, so, because we don't have the calculations, they have to provide whether they are crossing or not.
Well, the problem with that is we got to decide tonight without the value. And what I'm trying to determine is exactly what is new that is
So if I may,
encroaching into the existing setbacks.
if I may, Member Stressau, if I can ask the applicant, based on the diagram, the area that's outlined in orange, does that represent the current structure?
Plus this covered porch. All this side is existing. If you go to a house, you're gonna see exactly this.
So the orange line, dotted line, represents the existing structure.
Correct. Plus,
I don't think it
because
does.
it's existing. All this area is existing, but this area is gonna stay exactly as it is. Right? We are demolishing this area here.
Okay, come back. So
Yes, sir.
the orange area, what does that represent?
Existing. That is
So,
gonna stay existing.
when I asked the question, what in addition to that are you talking about? You're saying almost.
No, this is existing and it's gonna stay as it is.
So the orange area represents the existing structure.
Correct.
That orange area presently encroaches into the setback lines of the code, and that orange area is designated as a non-conforming use. Correct?
That is correct.
You are planning to add to that the areas that are not outlined or not highlighted but are shown in gray line as the blueprint.
Correct.
And you're saying that the new addition is within the current setbacks.
The new addition, no, sir, is not. This area here.
Can we turn this big screen? Is that possible? Not you, them. Oh.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So this is the first house that is going to stay exactly as it is, just minor modification inside. This is a cover area that is existing, right? But we're going to demolish this area, right?
Whoa, you're going to demolish what?
This area here.
So that's a porch, right?
It's a porch.
Okay.
There we go.
Thank you.
It's a covered porch.
Took the girl to do
It's a
that.
closed-in porch.
Okay.
It's a covered porch.
So it's a covered porch. You're going to tear down the covered porch.
And you can see right now the house is like this. So that covered porch is this one. And as you can see, this is an issue that is not like.
Does the covered porch encroach on one of the setbacks?
But it's going to be removed anyway.
I know, but they want to build something where it was.
Yeah, it's encouraged in this corner here and this area here.
So the white part on the drawing on the left is the covered porch area.
That's going to be removed.
That's going to be removed, and you want to replace that with what?
Replace it with new.
With new,
Well,
and that.
let's
okay.
deal with just the porch area.
Yeah. So the porch area is out of compliance, this corner and this.
But if you're going to remove that, that's not part of this equation, is it?
No, because we're gonna build.
So let me
Remove,
just.
changing the porch for.
Okay.
So,
Go ahead,
so
Pat.
members,
Okay. Can
members.
I just finish one?
Oh, sure,
Sorry.
go
Go ahead, Pat.
Could you go back to that picture? Okay. Oh, too far. So the red line is this,
What we are proposing.
what you're proposing. The green line is the existing setback line.
That is correct.
So why is the red line all the way around the house? The red line is all the way around the house because you're going to encroach on where you're replacing the porch a little bit on that south side, or whatever side that is, on the bottom. You're encroaching a little bit where the porch used to be. You're going to encroach your building a little bit, and you're encroaching on all the back side of it because the building itself currently encroaches. And then you're going to encroach on the right-hand side. Why do you need to do that?
Good question. That can be moved to match this line. But what we were planning just
so on the
to
right-hand side, you can move
Yeah,
your
the
setback. You can meet the setbacks on the right-hand side.
This is not the problem, really. The problem is here in the back.
Well, I guess the note says that it apparently encroaches at 10 foot 4 inches, and that setback should be 14.
This is in the size.
No, I want to deal with just what's over on the left-hand side or on Southeast 2nd or 12th Avenue.
Okay, so the rule, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm interpreting your rules. They say 25 feet, measure the 25%, and then that is how the green lines are, right? So
Right.
we have these two rear sides. Front is 25 feet, no problem. The rear is this, right? And it's parallel, 15 feet parallel to the property line. So we come 15 feet, 50 feet, become this green square. That is all this area, the existing house is part of the house, and this corner, and this line is a little bit there, so it can be moved inside. So what we are proposing is just replacing all this area, right?
Right.
Exactly, and just coming here, corner there. That is what we are proposing here, replacing the area and corner.
And you said that you could adjust the east side
Yeah,
so that you conform to the required setback.
This portion can be adjusted, not perfect, but can
I
be
think
done.
it's 4 feet or
Yeah.
something.
We can be adjusted. The problem is in the back. Look, there is no setback in the back, existing setback.
But taking this piece by piece,
Yes.
you can adjust it so the border on the right side
Is
matches,
moved away.
and you can adjust it so the angular one on the left side comes in.
Right there.
Because
little
there's
corner
nothing.
can be adjusted, yeah.
Just fix it.
These two little portions can be adjusted.
Okay, so then we're talking
Because
about.
we're talking about 1 feet inches.
So then we're talking about if you could adjust the left and the right-hand side so you won't need a variance for those. What you hear about, and Dwayne, correct me if I'm wrong, what you need to build onto this is to be allowed to keep the setback that's the 2.8 where the building currently is. I mean, that's how it was built. It's 2.8.
That's right.
That building's there.
Yeah.
So you're asking to allow that setback, which doesn't meet code, but the house is there and it's been there for a long time to meet that setback.
Yeah, you said
And
it
the
better
other
than
thing
everybody
is, and this is Dwayne, is the other reason that they're here because the improvements to the house that will now meet the setbacks is over 50% of the old house. Is that?
So the non-conforming use code, there's different aspects of it. One section of the code does not allow the enlargement of the nonconformity, which is the first request that they're seeking, and the second, which with regards to the 50%, is the adding of an addition to a nonconforming use. So it's the nonconforming use portion, for the most part, that creates the issue that they're seeking the variance for. But they are also seeking minor variances for that new structure as they go over the green area a tad bit on one side and a tad bit on the other side. But he's saying that he can adjust to fit within the correct envelopes.
So
because right.
I just want to make sure that I'm understanding the laws because it was confusing.
Right.
1 second. So you can move in the left and the right, so you're not going to need
Left and right is not.
the variance to reduce. Let me see.
That's 47-5.33.
Yeah, which one of those are they not going to need anymore?
They won't need the last 2 bullet points if they make the adjustments that they're speaking about.
They're going to. You're going to not need the variance to reduce the west corner yard from 11 feet 8 inches from 14.7. You're not going to need that one, right? And then you're not going to need the one on the east, 10 foot 8, when 14.7 was right. So you're not going to need that. So what you're asking for is the 2.8 feet of an existing structure to remain where it is. And then the other one, variance to reduce the rear yard setback to 5 feet for a new structure where the code requires 15. So tell me where that one is.
Okay. So can I clarify something? We are not asking any variance about the 50%. We're going to respect that. The price of the 50% that you guys mentioned
They're not
before.
talking about the price,
Yeah,
they're talking about the
50%
area,
of
right?
that we are not changing.
What you're asking for is documented, so we're there.
So just to clarify that was mentioned before, that we are not asking anything about. If we continue, if we can respect, right now this is the house, right? And if this is respected, these setbacks in red are respected because we can continue with the house and manage here. That is what we are recommending here. Right now, we're going to move it to green and just continue this little portion.
So, did you understand that? I didn't.
I didn't either, but
first.
I think your comments are great, and that's but I'm losing the translation a little bit. But I have to be cognizant of the fact that your neighborhood has concerns over it. I think some of your openness. Sorry, my mouth, but your openness to make some adjustments to conform with what the neighborhood might want to see and what the law says is great. I don't know if it's our role to negotiate up here at the table, but I was wondering if it might suggest that you sit back and retool yourself a little bit, check with your neighborhood association, and sit down and talk a little bit, and maybe come back to us. Excuse me. Oh, I lost that. Thought I turned it on. And maybe retool your presentation a little bit and the plans a little bit and run it by the neighborhood and see if some adjustments can be made that maybe appease everybody, the landowner, especially the homeowner and the neighborhood association, and maybe come back to us with some revisions of that, if that'd be okay.
Ma'am, if you're going to speak, I'm going to need you to come up to the microphone and make sure you're also sworn in. Okay. Have you been sworn in? Yes. Okay, you did? Okay, then if you could please come up to the microphone, you could state the property address as the property as it's your address.
215 Southeast 12th Avenue,
And your name?
Zoya Hajianpur.
Okay, thank you.
The reason I bought this property because it was old. It was 100 years old. I love the structure of the old building. I wanted to keep the old building. This closed patio is with the old building. I mean, it was closed, it has windows, beautiful place. The only thing that we are planning to do is, because the bedrooms are so small and they don't have closets and there is no storage, the kitchen was so small, it was just a galley 7 by 4 feet. So to bring it up to the new times, I had to extend the kitchen and make another bedroom or bathroom here to make it livable to today's standard. But the shape of the building, I respect the old building. I want to keep the shape. I want to keep it as it is. So we are using only the patio part a little bit to just accommodate the today's living. It's still 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom. It's the same as it was, but we are making it livable. That's all.
Thank you. Before you go, does anybody have any questions for the owner?
I just want to point out, I'm pretty good at counting votes, and your team seems like a pretty smart team. I'm thinking maybe if you came back next month, that you'd have a better design idea that would get approved, because if it doesn't get approved here tonight, you're not going to be able to do this, and you have to start completely all over again. Just a thought for you.
I know. This is the last stage of my life, and we wanted to retire in this building. I wanted to make a building which has no steps, no stairs. We won't fall, we don't do anything. So it's not dangerous, so we stay independent more.
So, ma'am, just to kind of help you with what he's saying, in another way, you're not getting a bunch of head nods as you're going along with your presentation. And with the neighborhood association not really in favor, offering you, if you choose to bring it back after speaking with the association to come up with a plan that may be acceptable to them, it may be to your advantage. But that's up to you.
What about if I keep if they don't accept it, I keep the same thing and I just repair it?
Well, not our. That's up to you. But if I may just repeat what he said, maybe in different words, is we're suggesting that you withdraw tonight, come back again next month, and have your design team redesign as much as possible within the green lines, except for the existing. And
except the existing?
No, leave the existing where it is, and you're doing nothing to it.
Okay.
Make your improvements within the existing setbacks,
Sure.
which you probably can do, and still have a beautiful home, and then you're more likely to get a positive outcome.
Okay.
That's
meet
what we're
with the
suggesting.
association.
Okay.
Meet with the association.
But it's up to you. There's no guarantees on anything. It's just you can take your chances tonight, or you could come back after speaking. It's up to you.
Okay.
Okay, to which one?
We come back.
Got it.
Okay. So it's a request to come back.
Question.
Chair, before you make a decision, usually I just want to put it out there. Usually 30 days is not enough, because we know we work on the other end, because they have to change the plans and come back, and we might have to rewrite it.
We already changed the plans.
Come back in December, or whatever.
We already have changed a few things. Yes, we have Plan B, Plan C, Plan D. We have.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have a motion.
Okay.
Before you, I'd like to ask a question.
Go ahead, Fred.
Has to do with Bert. Tell me about the finished first floor. Is it okay? Or is FEMA going to step in and say, no, it's got to be 3 feet higher than it exists? I mean, let's make sure that if we're sending her out of here to do a little bit of redesign on the footprint, that everything else is okay.
What we can do is I can have one of the flood staff contact them and go over exactly what will be required, so I don't misspeak here tonight.
Okay.
But we can do that.
And I would, like the designer is here, I think he should be able to tell us if he's complying with the FEMA requirements when he's doing it, or I mean, it's better because he's the designer of record.
I don't care. I just don't want to send her down the road and then find out in 2 months that somebody's made a ruling that the finished first floor has to be raised.
That's a good point.
Okay,
Mr. Chair,
you're
can I
on.
make a motion?
You're
Yes,
on.
go ahead.
I move to defer up to 90 days this agenda item.
Before the vote is taken on that motion, from the applicant, do you agree to the deferral and waive do you agree to the 90-day deferral?
Well, I thought
Can
you
it
said
be
up to.
earlier?
Well, up
Yeah,
to.
yeah. So you can come back. You can come back sooner if you want to.
I'm just trying to get some flexibility with holidays.
Yeah, no. But she looked like she was going to
Staff.
faint. So I just wanted to say that it's up to 90 days. If you're ready before then, you talk to the city and come back earlier.
I'll go ahead and second the motion.
Okay, but I don't
No,
think we heard your
Assistant City's interim city attorney, Dwayne Spence. Is it a form that they complete? Okay, so we have a waiver form of Chapter 166.013, which requires application to be heard within a particular time period. So I just wanted you to state on the record that you agree to waive that time period, and we'll complete the form.
Yes.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Jamie, if you want to take roll.
And it's
Mr.
up
Mead?
to 90 days.
Up to 90 days.
Can you read the motion?
To defer the item for up to 90 days.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Ms. Rathburn?
Yes.
Mr. Stressa?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
And Chair Elfman?
Yes.
Pass
Okay.
7-0.
We'll see you in the next few months.
Thank you.
Next case number 230-80002, property address, I have 301 Southwest 14th Way. And let's have disclosures first. So Milton, we'll start with you. Any disclosures?
None.
Okay. Doug?
This is a 3 houses?
Yes.
None.
Okay. And I had conversation with council.
None for Wolf.
I'm sorry, site visit.
I talked to Abby Laughlin.
Okay.
This is item 3, right? Yeah. I talked to Abby.
Okay. Andrew, you're up.
Good evening, Chair, members of the board. Andrew Shine here representing the property owner, and we also have the property owner, Kurt Fredham, in the audience as well. This application is for 301 Southwest 14th Way. It's in Sailboat Bend. Right now, it's 3 tax folios. Combined, they're 225 feet in width, all combined. This is a closer up aerial. You can see kind of in the lower third of the picture, there's a house that's existing on the site, and that house is going to be important to this discussion tonight. Other than that, the property is vacant, lots of trees, it's beautiful, but there's just one house on the site right now. I'm going to go through a little bit of history of this property, and a little bit of Sailboat Bend as well. In 2021, the City Commission approved, they called it the Archaeological or Historic Resource Survey, where they took all of the houses in Sailboat Bend and they put them into 2 categories, one being houses that contribute to the historic district in Sailboat Bend, and the second is houses that are not contributing to the historic district in Sailboat Bend. A lot of that was based on architecture, who the architects were, what year they were built. This property at 301 Southwest 14th Way, and this is very recent, it was only 2021, the city listed it as a non-contributing property, meaning it does not contribute to the historic character of Sailboat Bend. that doesn't mean it's not an important house on its own, but it means that it does not contribute to the historic district. In a couple months after that, the owner went through his due diligence period, got under contract for the house, saw that it was not a contributing property, looked at the code, and what the code criteria is for demolishing a non-contributing property. The criteria for demolishing a property in a historic district is that it no longer contributes to the historic district. This was a no-brainer. The city already said less than 2 years before that it was not a contributing property. So he bought it knowing met the criteria for demolition. In September 2021, they closed on the house, and then he bought the 3 lots. In May of this year, they went to the Historic Preservation Board to get approval for the demolition of the property. Seeing that the property met the criteria for demolition, the Historic Preservation Board voted 6-1, which is fairly overwhelming for that board, voted 6-1 to approve the demolition. A month after that, in June, they went to the City Commission for approval of the demolition, and Commissioner Glassman, whose district this is in, raised a concern. I don't want to phrase it as a concern. He asked us to look at other options of things we can do besides demolishing it. He acknowledged that it's not a contributing property, but he said, a lot of the neighborhood likes this house. I like this house. It does have some value on its own, so can you please look at other options? We said yes, and we deferred it. We deferred from that hearing. It was put on again, the City Commission, on Tuesday, and then I went and I deferred it again pending this hearing. So after all that, we went back and we looked at what other options do we have. There were 2 main ones. One was relocating the house on the site itself, and 2 was relocating the house off-site. We explored the off-site option, not feasible due to it's a big risk to the house, and the streets aren't very wide there to move a full house through, so that was not a feasible option. However, relocating it on the site was a feasible option. And that brings us here tonight. We did meet with the Sailboat Bend Civic Association we did meet with some other interested neighbors one-on-one who are in the audience. And I think we came to a solution that makes the commission happy, it keeps the house for the neighbors, and also makes this project feasible for the owner. Keeping the house and relocating is probably not the most financially feasible for the owner, but again, this is the middle ground that we found. And that middle ground is to split the property into 4 lots instead of 3. The reason for that, I'll go back to the reason for that is the minimum lot width in this when you're on the water is 75 feet. And that's the 3 lots. 75 times 3 is 225. What we're proposing is to split it into 4 lots, relocate this house to the northernmost lot, and then do the 3 houses that they wanted to do on the southernmost lots. So they're 56.25 feet in width. And that lot width is not unheard of in the city or even in this neighborhood. They'll be very similar to lots that are, this is the property here, and these are lots that are between 50 and 60 feet in width, same as those lots. So it's not really an unusual circumstance to have between a 50 and 60 foot lot there. And this is the proposed design or at least layout of the properties. And I'm bringing this up because this is important to explain where in the process we're at right now. Right now, we have a demolition application pending at City Commission that we would like to withdraw if this gets approved. If this does get approved and we withdraw the demo application, great. But this is barely step 1 in the process right now. Any design of those houses is going to need to be approved by Historic Preservation Board. The relocation of the house is going to need to be approved by the Historic Preservation Board. They're called a Certificate of Appropriateness for New Construction and Relocation. So this step is it's at the very beginning, getting the variance. After this, the houses will still need to be approved. The layout of the houses, the layout of the lots, that will all need to be approved by Historic Preservation Board with neighborhood input. So again, this is just step 1. But right now, we're trying to find the middle ground to make commission happy, the commission okay, neighbors okay, and us okay. And I think we found that middle ground. This is just the next step in that process.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll save some time for rebuttal for you.
Perfect.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anybody from the public wishing to speak? Please come up. And you were sworn in, right?
I was, yes.
Okay.
Hi,
Thank you.
my name is Margie Nothard. I live at 215 Southwest 14th Way, which is directly to the north in this house right here. So first of all, I want to thank Mr. Fredden for considering saving the existing Bill Biggany house. Many of you may know Bill Biggany. He lived and worked in the city of Fort Lauderdale for many years, an architect who is held in really high regard. And he did 4 important buildings in this area. He did our house, he did this one, which is a 301. He did another one, 333, which is former Mayor Norgal's house. And he did another one at the end, which is Chuck Willard's house. One of the very important aspects, as you can see, if you look at this compared to this, is the setting of these homes. They're in a very green area. This is the Sailboat Bend Preserve that was created by local residents. And so what we're happy that the new owner is keen to move the house, and we also want to encourage them to preserve as much landscape, because Bill Biggany's homes are really about living in Florida, enjoying the climate, and also culturally just expressing the kind of neighborhood of Sailboat Bend. So we support the request for the 4 lots with the notion that the actual house will be located on the northernmost portion of it. And we've met with every neighbor. The Willards are in the Bahamas. Mr. Madar's out of the state, and they couldn't attend tonight. But we've also met with the Broward Trust. We've met with all the residents, and everyone thinks that saving this home and some of the setting, rather than thinking about it as a completely new, fresh start, is really significant. So we just wanted to add that, and thank you for the time.
Thank you. Mr. McKinley, I think you've been in front of this board. Oh, wait a minute. You're on this side of the board.
Yeah, I'm on this side.
But before you go, I know
do
you
have
weren't
to be
sworn
sworn
yet.
in.
Jamie, if we could swear please in.
Yes, I do. Hey, for the record, I'm Blaze McGinley, 1500 Argyle Drive. Blaze McGinley, 1500 Argyle Drive. A couple things I'm just going to drop in at the very beginning. So that one is actually my house, and I'd like to make a point that all those houses are like 1,200 square foot, 1-story bungalows built in 1940. So I can guarantee you that's not what he plans to build. So just to get a better sense of scale. The other issue I would take is, see these two? You see how it's solid gray and there's no green or anything? I mean, is that what we want? And then one of the last things was the site had lots of trees. So it used to have lots of trees. It doesn't have lots of trees anymore. So it doesn't look like this anymore because it's been cleared out of trees. So, I mean, it's a little disappointing when you see a group come from out of town and just kind of assume, this isn't the outskirts of Arizona. We really take this stuff very seriously. Nature preserve, volunteers, the whole 9 yards. So that being said, I'm not a big fan of the 4 lots, but I am definitely willing to accept that as long as the repositioning of the Biggany home is on that lot. Like, it has to be tied to this variance. Otherwise, there's no assurance that it will actually happen. Oops, the house fell in the river. Those two things have to be tied together. And so that's my concern. So I think that's it. To be honest, we would like to see more concessions relative to increase of impervious area, maybe additional landscape, additional caliper of trees and things like that. But he made a presentation to the association. There was no dialogue. It was this is what we're going to do. I mean, I realize, I realize we are on different sides of a discussion, but again, at the very least, the house needs to be tied to the variance, the relocation. Thank you.
Thank you, Blaze. Okay, Andrew, I know there's going to be some questions for you if you want to come back up. Is there anybody else from the public wishing to speak? Okay, in that case, was there any questions for anybody?
May I clear things up as well?
Not yet.
Okay.
Was there anybody have any questions of the speakers? Paul, you called at one point?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Pat, tell me who it's for. I'll bring them back up.
I'm sorry, no, for Mr. Shine.
Oh, in that case, I'm going to close the public hearing. And Mr. Shine, you're on.
First of all, I really like the idea that this is going to be saved, but as both of the speakers said, that it's got to be, if we grant this variance, that it's got to be tied to the Biggity House being moved and moved first, because it might fall in the river, it might fall down. So if I were going to vote for this variance, it would be contingent on the successful move of this property to the one lot. And are the shed and the guest house part of that? Are they moving too, or is it just the house? It's just the house. Okay, so some of those outbuildings aren't going to be moved.
Right.
And you're not re-landscaping and making it look like it looks now. You're just moving the
No,
house.
that is the plan. That was going to be part of my next step. Yes, that is part of the plan. The environment, the landscape, all around it.
Yeah.
Some for selfish reasons, some for non-selfish reasons. But yes.
Well, that was the whole thing of his architecture. It was that it was the outside in, all of that. And he is a significant architect in Fort Lauderdale. He did 15th Street Fisheries. He did a number of different things, plus a lot of residential houses. And I think that the property owner is actually, even though he's reducing, he's willing to do this, which is nice, and he's going to pay for the move, right?
Yes.
And actually, he's going to have a product that might be a little less attractive to other people because of the size of the lots that he's going to put them on. So I don't think it's all a win-win for him. I think I want to commend him for offering to do this, because I think it's a house that's worth saving. And as long as that is configured on the lot first before anything else gets built, before anything else happens, I sort of like this idea. So.
Okay, if I may. Yes, you can condition it on moving the house first. I will say that's not necessary, because we have to go back to HPB for the relocation anyway. So if that's not approved by HPB, then we're stuck in the same position. But I have no problem. I will agree to that condition right now. As for keeping the trees, yes, that is the owner's intent, to keep the trees. One, because it's beautiful. Two, is because removing that many trees is very expensive. So there's also a financial incentive to keep the trees. Third is that you mentioned it might not be a win-win, because they would be smaller footprint houses. That is correct. We're not here thinking we're getting a solid win. That's why when I said the commission is happy with it, I changed it to okay with it. We're all just okay, but sometimes that's how compromises work. So we're going to keep the house, and we'll all be okay with the outcome.
What keeps a future owner of the house from tearing it down and rebuilding?
It's illegal. It's violation of the city's code. I mean, it's Historic Preservation Board. You can't.
But they already said it wasn't.
No, it's not a contributing property, but even non-contributing properties, you need approval for demolition. They just are frequently granted because they're not contributing. So it would still need HPB approval. I'm on the record now saying that's not the plan. I don't, possibly HPB can condition that, or, if it's relocated, it's possible that interested parties can even go for individual designation of the site. So,
are we able to precondition it, or we just have to approve the variance because that's going to happen by other entities?
it's already the law. So if the city attorney's office is fine with conditioning that, you can't demolish this without.
I'm hearing different conditions. I'm okay with the conditioning of the movement of the home. With regards to the protection of it, that would be under the authority of a different board and process.
But we already cannot demolish it without additional city approval,
So there's-
even future owners.
Just a point of information, so there's 2 variances before us, and we have an interest in tying the movement of the house as condition for the approval of the 2 variances. Is that correct?
Just one variance, and
One
it's to
variance.
allow a 56.25-foot lot width instead of 75 feet.
There are two variances, one that's dealing with the subdivision regulation, and then the other with the lot.
Yes.
But it's essentially the same criteria, but different sections of the code.
So, but if we're making a motion, we cite 2 variances. Okay.
Yes, you can.
Any other questions, Mr. Shine?
I did want to clear one thing up as well. We did not. No trees were cut down on this property. I think he was referring to the properties to the south. Yes. Okay. Yeah. No trees were cut down on this property.
Meaning the whole 3 or 4 that you own.
Correct. Yeah. When he said this area, the lots down here are under construction right now. No trees were removed from the 3 properties in question today.
Do you have any other further questions?
I was going to make a comment on the removal of the trees that Blaze indicated. I don't think there were any trees that have been removed on the 200 and what is it, 45-foot parcel. There's none been removed yet. I am sure that they will be, but none have actually had any kind of vegetation removed. I wanted to say that Margie and I have been down the road on this. I happen to be the owner of, or past owner, of 2 of Big Annie's houses. One that he and his wife originally built in 1956, and one that I pleaded with him to build in 1982 in Rio Vista. The structures and his design are truly unique. It was guided by the fact that in the 50s and 60s, even into the 70s, that air conditioning was not really available. And so his homes were designed to take advantage, number one, of the sites that had trees everywhere. There wasn't any sunlight that basically hit the ground. And so when the wind blew from one direction or another, it was not 95 degrees. It was pretty acceptable as far as I'm concerned. I think that the owner is doing a terrific job. My only concern was that if we approve the variance tonight and somewhere down the line that building does not get relocated to the north property, that we've got a bastard. We've got 4 lots that have been sized, reduced in width. When you consider the shoreline and what that gobbles up of each of the sites, it actually reduces the site below the square footage that's required for the zoning. But looking beyond that, I think it's a win for everybody. And I would encourage everybody to consider voting for it. Thank you.
With that, would you like to make a motion?
Nope.
Okay.
Can you show the pictures again of what you're planning on building?
Yes.
That would have been helpful in our package.
Oh, it's included. I
don't think
pretty
so.
sure the last graphic I showed. I don't want to beat a dead horse here. I just want to touch on it. This house, you can see where it's located now. So if it's approved and not relocated, they can't do anything.
Okay.
It's situated on there where we're in a worse position if it's not relocated. This is just again a general layout. All of the light green trees are existing and proposed to remain. The dark green trees will be new. And this is a very conceptual layout. It'll all have to go to the Historic Preservation Board for their approval. Not just the layout, but the design of the actual houses, facades, elevations, all that.
Thank you. Pat, did you have...
I was going to make a motion.
Please.
And Dwayne, step in if you want to. I'd make a motion to approve both variances as requested, contingent or subject to the successful relocation of the beginning house to the northern portion of the property because it meets the criteria for a variance, and it's a nice thing.
So we have a motion and a second. Jamie?
Is it contingent or subject to? You pick.
Subject to.
Subject
to. Okay.
Mr. Mead?
No.
Ms. Rathburn?
Yes.
Mr. Stressel?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
And Chair Othman?
Yes. Motion passes.
Motion passed 6-1.
Do we have the owner in the audience?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Andrew, I guess don't go too far.
I don't know that we've ever had anybody own a piece of property and come in and give us a solution.
Yeah.
Good job. Okay, next case. Case number 23080003. Property address 1290 North Federal Highway. We'll start with disclosures. Milton. Doug? Okay, Fred?
Site visit?
I had both a site visit and conversation with council.
Yeah, I did too.
Okay.
None.
Okay.
Site visit.
None.
There we go. Andrew, welcome back.
Good evening, Chair, members of the board. Andrew Shine here representing the property owner. This property is at 1290 North Federal Highway. It is the site of the new Allegro Senior Living Facility. Consists of 236 assisted living sleeping rooms and 25 memory care units. Assisted living, we all know what assisted living facilities are. In the memory care units, some of us might, it's for dementia and Alzheimer's type patients. It's under construction now and is currently leasing. It's a brand new state-of-the-art assisted living facility. This is the rear of the property. There's a current chain link fence at the rear of the property. It's built on the seawall. You can see it goes all the way to the south of the property. This is going all the way to the north. It connects to the properties to the south. There's a fairly continuous chain link fence through the property to the north, property to the south, and this one. You can see further. It's not as nice on the property to the north. But this is the existing chain link fence. What we're proposing to do is replace the existing chain link fence with a glass railing. It looks a lot nicer. It'll complement the architecture of the actual building. It's just nicer than a chain link fence. In the very brief history of this project was approved a couple of years ago. We did do an amendment to the project very recently to clean up some things that changed here and there during construction. One thing that was added in this amendment was a notation for the glass railing on the seawall. I can't zoom in here. You might be able to, I don't know if you can, it's like to the top right. Oops. I'll speak through it. Yeah. If you go to the right a little bit. So this is what a site plan amendment plan looks like. Any changes that have been made from the original approval are put in bubbles or clouds, right? If you can go to the right side of the page a little more, all the way. I'll keep going. Okay, thank you. We did include 42-inch seawall glass railing here. Details weren't included on it, but that's to say that this glass railing was already approved by the Urban Design and Planning Department. But when we actually went to go permitting, zoning picked up that it didn't meet the setback requirements. So it was already approved by Urban Design and Planning, but not zoning during the permitting. I can go back now. Yes, please. If you can do full screen again. Thank you. This is a plan. It's not included in your backup, just showing the details of the glass wall. It's 42 inches high. There's going to be a 1.5-inch gap at the bottom for water. Hopefully water doesn't come in. The seawall's pretty new, but I'm sure eventually, 50, 60 years down the line, we never know. There's a 1.5-inch break so that water can go in and out. And then it runs the entire length of the seawall. This is not an actual rendering. We don't have a rendering of what it'll look like, but it'll look very similar to this, except with the 1.5-inch gap. It's just a nice, classy glass railing. And the reason for this is not just aesthetics and it looks better than a chain link fence. The reason it needs to be where where we're proposing it is because we need it to connect to the other two to the north and south. What we don't want is a gap where people can go around it and then go onto the seawall. The purpose for this railing and the existing fence is so that the patients who are in here don't, if they wander off, they're not falling into the intercoastal. So we know we need a fence of some type, some physical barrier by the water, and we know it needs to connect to the north and south. So we figured, let's just make a nicer barrier and replace it in the exact same location that the existing fence is in. So that's the request.
Thank you. Being that there's nobody left in the public, but if there was, does anybody wish to speak? Okay, seeing that we don't have anybody, we'll bring it, close public hearing, and we'll bring it back to the board. Anybody have any questions?
Yes.
Koba?
The existing fence, is it legal non-conforming? Is it permitted? What's the dealio with the chain link?
I don't have an answer for how long it's been there. Staff might know if it's legal or not. I believe it is. I haven't seen anything that it's not. It's possible that it's not, though.
But if you're requesting a variance for a glass wall and the chain link is legal to have, that's where I guess I'm confused.
You mean we should just be, if it is legal, we should just be able to replace it?
Correct. Without a variance. That's why I'm asking the question.
If you could get with zoning after, that would be great.
I'll talk to you in 30 years on that one.
Also-
and the second part of my question is, what is the current code requirement if you don't get approved? How far does that glass wall have to get set back off the seawall?
I believe it's 5 feet, Bert.
No. Back of the seawall.
That's right, we'll let Bert answer.
Yeah,
I have it here. You're the pro.
How about if you show us a picture?
it could be right behind the seawall.
It could be right on the edge.
And we often, people who want to put fences or railings on the seawall, we often ask them, you've got a 1.5 foot wide cap. Why don't you just put it behind the seawall and you won't have to try to obtain a variance? So it certainly could be put back just behind the seawall.
But we can't have that gap. The gap is.
You already have, it's already offset. What you have there now, your gate, your fence is offset from your neighbor. You already have a little jag in it.
I mean, it's a difference of a person being able to get through, and I mean that's inches.
With a jag to it. You can do the same thing. If you move the wall off the seawall and put it adjacent, you can still do the same little jag and tie them together.
Why can't we just see the boardwalk that's on the real photograph of what's there?
What photograph?
Keep going. Right there.
I think it's also up.
Well, what they're talking about is moving the glass wall to the back of the poured concrete seawall cap.
We're just trying to replace it in kind where it is now.
But also, I think your point was there's a safety factor because of the clientele that's going to be utilizing the property.
I disagree with that.
We don't want people on the seawall or the ability to get them on the seawall.
Right now, if you, let's just say this area is at the end. You can move the higher part of the picture fence to the right a foot and still have an offset. Oh, sorry.
It's possible, but that's leaving more room on the seawall for people to go on there if they wanted to. We're trying to. This might seem like an excess caution because it is excess caution here. We're not. We're not trying to make it just okay and good enough. We don't want the seawall accessible by people at all, climbing over it, getting around it.
That's right.
Don't want it accessible. So we want the fence to be as close to the edge of the water as it could possibly be built.
Sorry, but logically backwards. If somebody is a resident here and has memory issues and you have a 4 foot, they can climb over a 4 foot and now they're falling right into the water. At least if you set it back, they're falling onto a wall.
I don't know. I guess they can climb it, but if they're climbing it, the distance from this, I don't really know if that makes much of a difference.
If you want to really have a safe fence, you would put something really so they can't get over it, if that's what you're concerned with.
Andrew, I have a question for you. So right now, how tall is the fence that's there?
I'd have to estimate.
Okay, do you know how tall the fence is that's proposed?
42 inches.
Okay, so 4 foot. And, okay. I did come up to the fence. I didn't remember how far it is above or below me.
Just a point of clarification, the chain link fence doesn't appear to have a permit.
Doesn't? So, but you want to replace it in the same location, is that?
Yes.
That's correct, okay. And I do see the benefit of having it be glass because it's harder to scale, and I'm sure everybody has dealt with somebody that has dementia or Alzheimer's, and they can be very determined. And if a child can climb up a chain link fence, an elderly person probably could as well if they were determined enough. So I like the idea that it's going to be something that's a little bit less accessible. And as to the location, your argument makes some sense. But.
And I'm getting this from the operators of the assisted living facility. I think reasonable minds can differ on the logic. I really don't disagree with you on that.
Because we're also looking at, you now said it's off the bottom, off the thing, and you're now giving them a step. To step
1.5 inches. Well, yes.
Well, no, 1.5 inches, another 3 inches. I mean, it's just.
I'm not necessarily saying that your logic is wrong or mine is wrong, or I do think reasonable minds can differ here. But this senior living facility, they have operations all around the country. When they appear to take security very seriously, and they're the ones running this. They probably have seen a lot. So, I don't know.
To me,
we can keep
there's no benefit to the property owner to have it move out. I mean, they're not getting any extra property. They're not getting any extra use of the property. So there must be a reason why it makes sense to them to locate it where it is now. Why does it have to price to locate it on the seawall?
They put it behind the seawall. Now they have to build a structure that they can secure the glass wall to. They're going to have to come in 4 footer.
Aren't they going to have to do that now?
No,
they're putting existing holes now.
The cheapest thing to do would be just to keep the existing fence.
Yes.
Changing it to a very expensive glass railing is definitely not the cheapest option.
It's huge.
Yes.
So I was just talking about the location of it, not, so does it make them any more profit to locate it there rather than here? And I don't see that.
Not that I'm aware of. If profit was the motive here, we would really just keep the existing fence.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other questions?
I want to make a comment.
Go ahead, Fred.
Bert, I have to tell you that in reading the ordinance, it does not address a requirement for a variance to put the fence where they're requesting. And it really bothers me as a designer that the department has used the excuse that it is a historical decision to require this developer to come before the board and ask for a variance.
That really isn't the case. We're not basing it on historical references.
Well, that's
the code
that's what I got from Rhonda.
Well,
from
the code,
you.
The code is a permitted code.
By the way, for both of you, not to be argued back and forth, Bert, you could state what you're going to state, and then we're going to move on.
Right. The code is a permitted code, and in that section of the code, it states what can be attached to a mooring structure.
Which include only mooring devices and davits.
That's correct.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm really upset about this.
Okay.
It's not fair to the design community when they come in and have a plan in 2 locations that's approved by DSD and approved by the building department, and now they have to come back after the fact, after the walkway is already finished and the landscaping is in, and tell them they have to come to this board for a variance.
But a point of clarification, it wasn't approved by the building department. We failed it. We did fail it, and it doesn't have a permit for the chain link fence. So there are times that items get missed during the DRC process, And one of the contributing factors that this didn't get caught is that the only place on the plans that this was shown was on the life safety plan, and we normally look on the site plan for the location of the fences during permitting and DSD. And then something else they're going to have to contend with at the time of permitting is how are they attaching it to the seawall, and will it damage the structure of the seawall itself? And we often ask for signed and sealed confirmation that that won't happen, because if they cut into the rebar or anything like that, or they spall any of the concrete, then it diminishes the strength of the seawall cap as well. We get signed and sealed documents from the
engineer.
Okay.
So with that in mind, I think, Bob, you were making a motion?
Yeah, I'll move you grant the variance request because they meet the criteria for the variance.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, Jamie?
Ms. Rathburn?
Yes.
Mr. Stressa?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
No.
Mr. Jones?
Oh.
Mr. Mead?
No.
Chair Elfman?
Yes. Where are we at?
Fails.
4-3, it fails. You need 5.
Okay, there we have it.
Thank you all.
Thank you. So, this being done, is there any communication to the City Commission?
I would like to communicate.
Then please communicate.
I think the question, I'm not sure what the question was last month because I was not here, but the question of the height of fences compared to the ground versus the height of the main floor needs clarification, because if most houses are being raised due to flood requirements, they're now several feet higher than the surrounding land. And I think there should be clarification and a full explanation to the commission on what it is they're doing, because I don't think they understood the issue, if that was in fact what was communicated last time. But I would think that's a thing we'd like to have clarified, because I think the way it's currently written doesn't necessarily make sense.
Okay, so you did watch the video.
Yes, I did.
Okay. So we'll let you state your question so Jamie could put it down proper.
Well, if I may, I think that the commission does understand. So it was this board that initially brought the question up. So it's a question of whether or not you're going to have a high fence facing an existing property or a low fence on a newly developing property. With regards to sustainability and the new elevations, the decision was made at the request of this board to have the fences at code for the new properties, and for a temporary time period, the existing properties are going to be facing these large fences, but it's a consequence of future development.
Question,
Sure.
because what you just said is different than what's been said before. What you just said was at elevation, saying that one property is here, one is here at the fence line. Okay, the way it's been explained before is they're both down here, but the floor is up here. The main floor is here, above it. Okay, so that's a very big difference between land being different and maybe a retaining wall and taking the elevation of the floor.
Okay, so you're saying the elevation of the actual structure tapers down to the property line, and that's the issue that you're saying at the property line?
Yes, or doesn't. Maybe it doesn't taper down. I don't know, but I've never heard any conversation before about the elevation of the land. All I've heard said was the elevation is measured from the finished floor of the main, which is
that is correct. That is measured.
Any land.
It's the definition of grade.
That's the main floor of a house isn't necessarily a definition of grade. Why can't I have 3 steps up? I had to raise my house. I don't have to raise. Do I have to raise my land?
Well, I'm not necessarily following the line of questioning, but
I think so. For this board, I know most of you are new on this board. I mean, a couple of them have been here for a long time, especially Fred and Mr. Cooper. So the previous board has requested, because we were getting continuous cases before the board, like every agenda had 1 to 2 cases. where, especially between two neighboring properties, the old code section was we had to measure the height of the fence from the lowest point, whichever side, the new side, the old side. If there is a retaining wall, you go to the bottom of the retaining wall, and the 6 foot 6 inches would be measured from that point. And sometimes it was there was a 3 foot retaining wall, and the new fence is only 3 foot high. So that's why with the new properties being elevated, and then the Board of Adjustment, the previous board, had asked the City Commission to rewrite the code section. So we went ahead and rewrote the code section to make it, although it, and most of the time the neighbors were coming in and saying, yeah, I don't want my neighbor to look over on my side, give them the fence what they want. And they were saying, it's okay with me. And based on that, we rewrote the code saying the fence height should be measured from the finished floor.
So Mohammed, I think they understand that. I think there's and I'm trying to understand the interpretation of how the code is applied and how you are understanding it.
All right, so we had a couple months ago, we had two houses.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, grade was iffy, but it was down here. The house was up here because they raised the house level. They didn't raise the land, they raised the house level, or the shed that was in here. The conversation was, well, the land doesn't matter, although that's consistent in the neighborhood, but you can measure from the level, the finished floor of the house. The finished floor of the house has nothing to do with the fence that could be 10, 15, 20, 100 feet away. But that seems to be the way it's being interpreted now. So I have no problem with, if you have a retaining wall, you can measure from the top of the retaining wall. But to take a measurement that's based on the house, which may not be anywhere adjacent to necessarily the property line, is...
And we hear you, and actually we are in the process of rewriting the code of exactly what you're saying for the neighbor sides, and we are coming up with different options. We internally are discussing it to what you just said, to have the fence at the point of the grade, whatever the grade is at the location, to have that height. We are still debating internally what's the best point, especially as Fred said, in the front property line would be with reference to something where the sidewalk height or something like that with the front property line. Maybe the side property lines might be higher, but the front would be.
In other words, we're debating. I mean, I think it'd be great to have a workshop or something, or a presentation on it once they get closer to where they're developing it. Because I think your point's great. And I'm certainly, as a newbie, sort of on this stuff, I was like with Fred going, "Oh, that's a good point," but I don't know.
Yeah, so before you make another communication to the commission,
that's fine. I didn't realize
if we
that that's
can,
being
because
discussed.
I think I'm not fully understanding the issue that you're raising, but I'm getting an inkling of what it can be, and I'd like to get with staff since they're apparently discussing it and trying to figure out.
Yes,
In pro staff, I think that a lot of people come here and they're paying a lot of professionals a lot of money, and they should be responsible for meeting code. That it's not necessarily staff's job to go through every little thing. And yes, it might not get picked up by the first guy or the second guy and the third guy or the sixth guy. Well, that's who looks at that. And they're paying a lot of money to a lot of professionals who should know what they're doing. But on the other side, a lot of the code is not necessarily clear and open for logic versus how it might be interpreted by somebody different.
Right.
So we'll come back to you with.
If I might make a suggestion to the staff, because a great example is if you go down to Seven Isles, go down to Castilia, they're building a ton of new mega homes there, but there's still a lot of older homes there, and Castilia Island has been historically lower land than the rest of the isles on Seven Isles. So some of those newer mega homes they're building are meeting code, but there might literally be a 3.5 to 4 foot elevation difference between the existing home and a new home. And now you're talking about the street. Well, in Castilia, the street might still be low, and that might need to be raised. So when we discuss grade, we have to discuss what is the definition of grade. Is grade the finished floor of the house, or is it the finished dirt level at the floor of the house, which might be required to be 2 inches lower? And I think that's really where it's getting confused. I could be wrong, but that's a great example to go and look at of what's going on there, because it's blatantly obvious of elevation difference.
And there's different grades within the code. So there's going to be a different grade for finished floor for the structure, and there'll be different grades for accessory structures like gazebos and things like that, as well as fences. So there won't be one grade that covers everything, but we are working to measure like fences from ground level, not from the finished floor.
Fred, you had something to add?
Yeah, you guys are really circling around to where I was at the meeting and what caused the motion. Our communication to the City Commission was that we were asking the Planning and Zoning Board to discuss the definition of grade. In listening to the tape of the commission meeting, the mayor said it is not clear exactly what the board is requesting. Anthony Fajardo, who's assistant city manager and was the director of building department, got up, and Anthony wasn't here at when we discussed this at some length at the end of our meeting, and he tried to discuss what you all are talking about as far as establishing the fences between the buildings, and that was not what we talked about or what I brought up. Anthony talked about what you're saying is that the fences are actually higher when they are measured from the finished grade of the principal structure. And the mayor commented, he said, well, the higher the fences, the better. And I want everybody to remember that. The higher the fences, the better. Anthony commented to that. He said, without further clarification from the board members, I would think that the mayor's assessment is correct as to what the Board of Adjustment is asking for. My comments and the reason that I ask for a communication to the City Commission has to do with the placement of fences on the front property line or on the face of the seawall, on the face of the sidewalk. If you establish grade as equal to the elevation, the FEMA elevation of a house, and that is 3 feet above the sidewalk, then the 6'6" fence that can be placed on the sidewalk turns into a 9 or almost 10-foot fence. And I don't think that's what we want. If you set the fence back 3 feet, which meets the code, you've still got a problem. There is a section of the fence code that says you can only run parallel to the property line for 20 or 25% of the total width of the lot. But if you step back to 3 feet so that you average 3 feet of setback from the property line, you could build a fence that's 10 or 11 or 12 feet high, depending on the elevation of the house, along the entire front of the parcel. And I think that you're correct in the fact that we need to meet with the building department and see what they're proposing. And I think that our question was, we need to send this information to the Planning and Zoning Board and have them discuss it, because I don't think that they're going to miss the fact that we're trying to keep from building 10 or 12-foot walls along the streets.
Nothing wrong with having a workshop.
Chair?
Yes.
What I would recommend is probably we'll try to get what we are trying to propose. I know what you guys are trying to achieve, and I think all of us, we understand and we agree to a certain extent that, and we are trying to break down the fences, the habitable structures. Right now, the way the code is written, even a tiki hut could be 15, 20 foot high. The way the code is written right now, when we changed it, it was. So we are trying to break down, and if you need, we can do a small presentation over here.
So the original code amendment came about from this board, whose function is to address variances and special exceptions and so forth. Because of the excess number of variances that were coming before the board to address the fences that weren't of sufficient height for structures that were meeting flood elevation. They were dealing with fences that met code, but that were insufficient height from the elevated property side. That was a valid request that was sent to the City Commission. I'm kind of curious on the inverse, that what are the circumstances that arises to this board's attention that you're trying to address? Are there requests that are coming on the opposite end to this board that no? How does it come to this board versus the Planning and Zoning Board?
Well,
attention.
2 meetings ago, we got into a really nasty discussion of a property out on the beach. I don't know, it was 14th Street or something that abuts the park. And I guess I spent a lot of time looking at what the fence ordinance actually required. And I was unaware at the time that this FEMA introduction had been brought before the board and approved. And so when I looked at what was really permitted based on the FEMA elevation of the finished first floor as it related to what happens around the site, it has to do with the sheds in the back that could eventually be 12 or 13 feet high, and meeting the elevation of the finished first floor, not the elevation of the ground that they are to be constructed as. And that's the way the ordinance was written. And the same thing with the fence was written based on the grade of the ground that the fence was going to be constructed on. And then comes along this.
And Fred.
Go ahead.
But so you looked at code section 47.2-2. Is this a matter of how staff is interpreting grade? Because I thought that subsection 1A kind of addresses that. That's why I did say elevation. It says that the natural elevation of the ground when compared to abutting properties, natural elevation of the ground when compared to abutting properties shall be derived by selecting the minimum of 2 elevation points on each adjoining property line and calculating the average.
That doesn't have anything to do with what happens on the front yard.
You know, in the interest, because it seems like we could go 2 hours on this and back
Yeah,
and forth. What would be a good solution to be able to get somebody working on this?
So Fred, exactly, just for Fred's clarification, I understand. With the old rule, which we used to follow, we were getting a ton of requests before Board of Adjustment. And we were following the old rule where wherever it is the lowest side, neighbor or no neighbor, you go to the bottom of the retaining wall and you measure it. So that's why they were coming a lot of requests before Board of Adjustment, and they were approving almost every one of them. And that's why they requested us to change. But the flip side is when we changed it, without realizing.
That's it. I will speak with staff. I think it's a. I was involved with drafting it, so
It's real easy. I mean, either you have the fence on the property lines,
right.
which
So
is what the code addresses.
If the board, before sending another communication that will confuse the commission, let us deal with the confusion here.
Well,
and,
since you've heard the whole thing now, you're the
I understand the issue, and we'll have that discussion.
And that'll be good because we didn't have a motion anyway to bring to the City Commission, so there's nothing to break.
That whole issue is my fault because I didn't adequately explain what our motion was, other than the fact that the Planning and Zoning Board needed to be asked their interpretation of the.
Okay, so moving on, is there? So there is no specific communication for the City Commission. Is there anything for the good of the city?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Second.
Second, so moved. We don't have the roll call.
Do a better job next time.
See my email I just sent you.